The past 12 months have been challenging for all of us in a multitude of ways.
When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, people around the world were forced to restructure their daily lives. People have missed moments they can never have back, lost their livelihoods, and their loved ones.
As the pandemic revealed and exacerbated the reality of social inequalities, it also awakened deeply entrenched racist views towards Asians and Asian Americans. Hate crimes and deadly attacks have escalated in cities across the country.
In the wake of the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery this past summer, we saw a revitalization of the Black Lives Matter movement. Across the country and around the world, protests erupted as people fought to hold institutions accountable and challenge a culture that normalizes the systematic mistreatment and murder of Black people.
The United States went through an incredibly divisive presidential election that continued to expose the political polarization within this nation. This election ended in a violent insurrection at the United States Capitol building that was stoked by the former president and will no doubt go down in history as one of the darker days in American history.
Between all of these events and the many others that have occurred over the past year, we have all found ways to continue living, to continue to care for ourselves and those close to us, to continue to strive to create a better world and prepare ourselves for a future that has seemed increasingly bleak.
In one way or another, in varying degrees, this year we have all been resilient. We have made sacrifices and leaned on those around us for strength, care, and love.
Understanding all of this, we are so pleased to welcome you to the 2021 Women's Empowerment Initiative show, Roots of Resilience. My name is Sydney Lamb.
And my name is Zoe Honigberg. We would like to thank you for joining us today. Every year, the Connecticut College Women's Empowerment Initiative produces a show that serves as a platform for women and non-binary students to share their truths and raise awareness about the range of experiences students endure. Additionally, in a normal year, we donate the proceeds from ticket sales to Safe Futures New London, a shelter and resource center for families and individuals impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking in southeastern Connecticut. This year, we did not sell tickets for the show. We are requesting that you donate the amount you would normally pay for a ticket, $10, or anything more you can provide to Safe Futures through the link in the video description.
We will have a brief intermission this evening to share a short message and video from our Safe Futures liaison, Erin Gretorix, and from Safe Futures itself. During this intermission, we will also be sharing a slideshow of art pieces created by women and non-binary students.
The monologues in this show have all been written by current students at Connecticut College. The monologues were submitted anonymously this fall and were carefully read through and selected by our reading committee. The performers in each monologue are also current students, but they do not know who wrote the monologue they were cast in, nor are the messages they read necessarily true to their own experiences. Cast members were asked to not memorize their lines and will be holding their monologue mounted on black sheets of paper as they perform. This practice symbolizes the notion that the words they're reading are not their own and that they're amplifying the voice of another.
This year, our monologues cover a variety of subjects, including self-love, sexuality, racism, sexual assault, and more. Please be aware that many of the monologues may contain triggering content and language. Each monologue that covers a triggering topic will have a warning before the performance begins, so if the monologue covers a topic that you do not feel comfortable hearing, we encourage you to mute the audio for the duration of the performance. The monologues performed in this show will also be included in an anthology to be published later this spring.
With that said, thank you again for being with us tonight, and without further ado, it is our pleasure to present the 2021 Women's Empowerment Initiative show, Roots of Resilience. You tell me that you're sorry.
You're sorry that this happened to me.
You're sorry that I'm still scared.
You're sorry that nobody believed me.
You're sorry that you didn't know me back then.
You're sorry you couldn't do anything.
You're sorry there's only so much you can do now.
But then it happens to her.
And I don't know her.
And you do.
But here's the catch.
This time, you know him too.
You bring him to dinner. I sit next to him and clench my hands, staring at the table and feeling my throat work to keep down the panic building in my chest.
You drop his name casually in conversation, usually followed by a string of praises for him.
I don't think you notice the way my eyes drop to the floor every time.
You bring him to movie nights. You all are laughing and talking about how he should ask out some girl.
She's sweet, and it makes my heart hurt.
You tell me it couldn't have been him.
You know him.
He would never do that.
You don't think she's lying, of course.
She just must be wrong. It just must have been someone else.
Can't you see that she's me?
Can't you see that your job now, the job you weren't there to do for me, is to believe her? Was not lying.
We
are
not mistaken.
I am her.
And she is me.
If you cannot believe her,
then you do not believe me.
If you believe me,
then you must believe her. I don't know which one is the case for you.
But I know that when we are up crying at night,
when we flinch away from someone's hand grazing against us,
when we're tired and struggling and can't seem to break out of the cycle of reliving it all in our heads,
when we're hurting,
when we're scared,
when we are being invalidated by the world,
your job is to believe me.
To believe her.
To believe women. All of us.
I would say that I'm sorry if this is inconvenient to your friendship, except that I'm not sorry.
I'm done apologizing for the things that are done to us.
The things that are not our fault.
I'm done hiding my truth.
All of our truths.
For the sake of your comfort.
It's time to believe us.
And you better believe it.
I was 15 when I had sex for the first time. Or I thought it was sex.
I was 4 when I remember the first time I felt an anxiety attack. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My ears would get really hot and I felt like the world was fake. And all I can see is white lights and I'd scream and cry and sometimes I'd throw up.
I was 15 and I went over to his house. He had a giant house on the lake.
I was 5 when the anxiety attacks were so bad I'd hide under the kitchen sink and refused to go to school. I had to switch kindergarten classes because I would get so stressed out.
I was 15 and he was 16 and his parents weren't home.
I was about 10 when the panic subsided. My mom thought I just outgrew it, like I outgrew allergies to shellfish and Welch's fruit punch.
I was 15 and we laid in the shade by the lake.
I was 14 when I met the cutest guy I'd ever seen. I had a huge crush. I told my friends and they said that he liked me back.
I was 15 and he climbed on top of me and pinned me down. I could feel the stones under my back.
I was 14 when I had my first kiss with the guy I had a huge crush on. It was at a school dance.
I was 15 when he ripped my shorts off. I couldn't breathe. I sobbed violently, but he didn't look at my face.
I was 15 when my first kiss became my first boyfriend.
I was 15 when I had sex for the first time. When he was finished, he just laid next to me. I tried to stop crying. I looked up at the sky. I thought to myself, I am a slut and God probably hates me. I am not religious and had never been to church. I'm actually very agnostic.
I was 15 and he was my boyfriend. I wanted to be hot in a light and chill and sexy way.
I was 15 when I lost my virginity. and my boyfriend told all his friends.
I cried,
He dumped me.
but I told myself this is what sex is like. Deal with it.
I was 18, I was in college, and a girl I know was raped. The same month, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testified every bit of her assault to the whole country and was mocked, and Kavanaugh was confirmed on the Supreme Court. I remembered being 15, being mocked by my boyfriend and his friends.
I was 18. I thought back to my 15-year-old self and left class to throw up in the bathroom. I was 18 and panic attacks came back in white-hot flashes with waves of nausea and denial.
The panic attacks were because I had finally realized, when I was 15, it wasn't sex.
I'm 19 now. I was raped over 4 years ago. And I never told anyone because I didn't know.
I am 19 now,
And
I'm angry.
Violence can't solve anything.
But sometimes when I close my eyes, I imagine beating the shit out of him.
This isn't some martyr story.
I don't want to be stoic and silent.
I want justice for 15-year-olds who don't know what the fuck sex is.
It did not need to happen this way.
The only liquor stores I had been in were dingy and falling apart. Dirt so caked into the floors, a mop could not salvage them. This one was different, a waspy place. The workers wore black button shirts with matching black pants and carried walkie-talkies like they were on some FBI mission. The place was huge, these tall ceilings and more wine than I would ever know what to do with. My friends and I traveled 45 miles to a Trader Joe's nearby and decided to stop into this Total Wine & More. I was pleased to see so many people of color in Trader Joe's, whittling their non-plastic shopping bags and browsing through the organic food aisles. I always thought Trader Joe's was a place for like crunchy white people to do crunchy white people things. I felt relieved in the way a sort of freedom spreads throughout your body, allowing it to be its most natural self when I'm not the only POC in the room. I felt released from overthinking the way I do when there's another woman of color nearby. I filled my basket with lots of chips and candy. My 3 white friends and I stood in line with our seltzers and beers. 2 of them paid together. When they got to the register, the manager was called over to check IDs. He took my friend's ID, scanned them, and they paid. I was next in line. The manager looked down at my ID and up at me. I recognized the look on his face. I've seen it before.
I won't be taking this ID today.
He said. I just stared at him, shocked because he hadn't even scanned it. All that I managed to get out of my mouth was, "This is my real ID."
I don't feel comfortable accepting this ID today.
He said again. I no longer saw my friends or the people around me. The pain sank in as I realized what was happening. And suddenly, I was watching myself. My curly, frizzy hair on my head, my lavender crop top, and gray sweatpants with pieces of brown skin sticking out.
I do not have to serve anyone if I am uncomfortable.
I heard him say again, I'm suddenly a child again. Years of fighting with my mirror, years of tear-stained cheeks in school bathrooms because some white boy didn't like me again. I fought my brown skin so much that now I have no choice but to wear it like a shield. Yet here I was again, just a brown girl, and here was another white man who got to look at me however he wanted to, like his prize, like a dirt pile, like a sex symbol, like trash to be taken out and never looked at again. After my friend yelled at the manager on my behalf, we left the place, my 3 white friends and me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and angry tears fell down my face. All I wanted to do was go back in the store and punch the glosses off the smug manager's face. The car ride back felt like I was somewhere above myself, floating over my body, but no longer in it. Later in the day, when I called to file a complaint, they offered me a gift card.
Hey, so sorry about that traumatizing racist experience that made you feel like less than a human being. Here's a fucking gift card.
I felt numb for a week. At times, right before I wake up, I see the way his face looked at me. Sometimes the numbness creeps in, but if I let it take over, I am no longer a human. I do not get to dwell on it because I do not get to live a day without thinking someone might be uncomfortable with my presence or my existence. If it's raining, if it's sunny, if it's a random Monday, if I'm in a dress and heels or just rolled out of bed, if we are sleeping in our rooms, if we are walking in our own neighborhoods, we will experience racism.
Day 1. I see her across the room. She's dressed in bright blues, pinks, yellows. I can't look away.
Day 2. My boyfriend breaks up with me over the phone. I cry. She holds me.
Day 3. We're in the audience watching the dance performance. It's dark. We're surrounded by friends and strangers. When she moves her face close to mine, I don't move away. Instead, I move an inch closer, and our lips touch, softly and quickly.
Day 4. She holds my hand after my fingers graze hers while we walk across the green. She pulls me to a stop and kisses me, deeply this time.
Day 5. She meets someone else. Now they hold hands and kiss, and I have to watch it.
Day 6. I spend a lot of time in my room, in the dark, in my head. I try smoking cigarettes. It helps for a few minutes, at least at first.
Day 7. We scream, we yell, we cry. I'm so angry my hands form fists that I know I will never use, but sometimes wish I could. I feel guilty for thinking that.
Day 8. I sit alone with a cup of tea. I look out my window. I think of many things, but mostly her.
Day 9. We run down the streets and sidewalks after dinner. I can't stop laughing. She grabs my hand and we collapse into a pile of leaves behind an old building.
Day 10. She tells me she loves me. I cry again, but for new reasons. I am filled with joy, hope, and fear.
Day 11.
I love her too.
I bring her under the covers to a space where we're completely alone and entirely enveloped in the dark.
Finally, I feel safe with her here with me.
We stay there until we fall asleep.
When I was in high school, I found a book that featured, even starred, an asexual character. Not a reference book, not a manual, but a novel. Not only that, but other people were actually reading it, and it was topping the charts. It was a real book. I felt real.
I read the book, cover to cover. In the whole 200-page book, Asexuality was only 2 pages. It was less than a plot device, something to be forgotten. 2 pages where the main character spouted definitions that could have been copied and pasted from the AVEN website.
When I tell people that I am asexual, all I get is confused looks. I have to start at square one, with definitions. When books and monologues are about asexuality, so much time is spent on definitions that I never get to hear the real people behind the words.
This is me.
I feel joy, there's a word for what I feel, or better said, don't feel.
I feel lonely.
I feel terrified that when I find my person, they will not be like me.
I feel connected to the people I have found who are like me.
I feel confused by the obsession of our culture with something I don't feel.
I feel doubt, and I wonder how anyone else could possibly understand me if I don't even fully understand myself yet.
But I also feel proud of myself for trying to understand myself. I'm still learning to accept the joy, the pride, and even the doubt.
Other asexual people of Con, I know you're out there. Be strong and be brave. When you read terrible books that use our sexuality as a plot device, remember that you are real. Don't be afraid to live outside of other people's definitions.
I've always looked older from a young age. I get easily distracted.
I was looking for something to wear. I noticed a batch of flowers on my way to Grandma's house.
I knew that shirt was too tight. I thought Grandma would love some.
But I was too lazy to change.
My mom told me not to talk to strangers.
I was on my way to the library. I should have just gone straight to Grandma's house.
I loved the library, containing all the books I could read, but I love wandering about nature.
It was like any other day, and watching normal processes happen.
Then he came up to me.
Then came the wolf.
He asked for my number. He looked friendly.
I was 11.
I had forgotten my mother's warning.
He didn't believe me. I told him where I was going.
I was uncomfortable. I left him and made my way to Grandma's house.
He followed me.
I shouldn't have told him where I was going.
All the way to the library.
He went to Grandma's house.
I went inside the library. I walked into Grandma's house.
I didn't know he had left. I didn't know that the wolf ate my grandma.
I tried to distract myself.
Grandma had big eyes.
I was still scared.
Grandma had big ears.
I didn't want to go home alone.
Grandma had big teeth.
I wanted my mom to pick me up.
I tried to run.
But I didn't have a cell phone.
But it was too late.
I was scared to ask a librarian.
I was eaten.
I ran home, looking back the whole way. I came tumbling out of the wolf.
I was safe at home. The woodsman saved me.
I never wore that shirt again.
I never talked to strangers again.
This girl you're trying to be in your Instagram post, that isn't you.
Well, it's certainly a side of you, but it isn't the whole you.
I've seen you without makeup, with your hair unstraightened, with your life seeming to crumble around you.
Your silly quirks and humor are funny and real. More funny and real than your perfect smile and curated outfit that match your flawless social media aesthetic.
You have so much more personality than your filtered Instagram shows.
You're definitely hot as fuck, though. Don't get me wrong.
But you don't need the makeup.
You don't need your hair to look flawless every moment of every day.
You don't need to buy the new skirt you saw a TikToker wear to be seen.
You are seen.
You are admired.
You are
fabulous and wonderful
in more ways than you know.
You just don't need to compare yourself to other people's timelines, nor do you need to compare yourself to famous people who look like they have their lives together.
They have bad days too.
They have the same insecurities you do.
They are struggling
just like you.
I know your looks and your Instagram are ways to cope with pain. It brings you empowerment, making you feel in control when there is so much slipping away.
But please lean on me.
Lean on your other friends.
Lean on your family.
We are there for you, and we will validate the wonderful you that you are in ways that likes and views can't.
We'll hold you while you cry and order Domino's with you at 2 a.m. when the sky feels like it's crashing down.
It's so easy to escape into the virtual world of social media, deeming it as a better reality than the one around you. But you know how they say you only live once? I don't want you to wish away the incredible things that your 21-year-old self can experience, just waiting for things to get better. It's so much easier said than done, but I want you to try to celebrate the little things, the small victories.
You deserve to see the smart, funny, ambitious woman I see. I know how hard you work. I know how much you care about those around you. You are so much more than a number, so much more than the likes you get on a post, than the amount you weigh on a scale, than the size of your jeans.
Your worth can't be quantified.
I wish I could do more to help you love yourself the way I love you.
Your natural curls, your eyelinerless eyes, your beautiful rolls, your double chin when you laugh, I want you to love those parts of you the way I love them.
I wish there was more I could do to help you find happiness in things other than your social media.
Because you deserve
all of the happiness in the world.
The worst part of this pandemic is the inability to touch.
It's so hard to feel loved when we can't kiss, can't hug, can't express our love in gestures other than words through the phone.
It took me until this summer to realize how much I need to be held, how much I need to be touched. My mental health depends on it.
The smallest of moments, the fleeting, briefest of physical connections, to the longest, tightest embraces. Those are the times when I feel most whole.
Every time we touch, I feel my love for you growing, my dependence a high that I never want to come down from.
But physical intimacy is literally the worst of love languages in a pandemic. We can't kiss with masks on, we can't hug without being within 6 feet.
And as much as I always try to follow the rules, I'm willing to break them if it means I can feel your touch.
When you hold my hand, fluttering your fingers against mine, feels like together we could conquer anything. The sweatiness of our palms reminds me that you're real, that this is real.
When you kiss my lips, my neck, my body, running your gentle hands over my skin, your touch turns me on, reminding me how beautiful I am and how powerful I can be. As you take off my shirt, my insecurities go with it, falling into a heap on the floor.
When you squeeze me into your chest and I hear your heart beating, ba-dum, 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 my breathing slows, my body relaxes. I fall into a complete state of tranquility.
When you play with my hair, twirling it around your fingers, as I cuddle into your side, it puts me to sleep, as only there am I finally at ease with my tumultuous mind.
When you cradle your hand behind my head, as tears stream down my face and anxiety rages through my body, I know I am safe, that your arms will hold my shaking, crumbling body together.
When you sit on the edge of your bed and you lean your head against my shoulder as I stand between your legs, I feel how much you need me, just as much as I need you. Your arms around my waist say, "I'll never let you go."
I am working in the library. I want to cry. There is no discernible reason.
I am laying in bed. My alarm goes off. I do not move.
I am sitting in class.
There is a lively discussion. I stay silent. I am eating with friends. They laugh at something I say, but I fear they are pretending to like me.
I have been to counseling, and I have quit counseling because I was afraid.
Too afraid to face anxiety, unable to even utter the word depression. They asked me questions, and I did not have the answers. If even I could not fathom the pain that I felt, how could I begin to make them understand?
I go back to my room at night and I think. I am vaguely aware that my heart is beating and that I am breathing all too quickly.
I can hear my mind racing. I can hear my world spinning madly out of control. One irrational thought at a time, like a metronome of nerves. I can hear my pulse echo in my ear. I cannot slow my breathing. The tears fall freely now.
I want to ask why, but the words do not come. I am hurting, and nothing has caused it.
My pain renders me speechless. I cannot explain why or how I am hurting, but nonetheless, I am in pain.
This is mental illness. Others cannot see my pain as they would if I had a cast on my broken leg. My pain remains a secret.
My pain is isolating. My pain is real. It is anxiety, and it is depression, and it is crippling. And I am just a girl.
I miss telling you to kiss me while you were inside of me, watching you move your head to meet mine, as if we had been together for years, as if I had been fucking you my whole life.
I miss cooking dinner with you in your little city apartment, my arms wrapped around your waist as you stirred the chickpea curry you were making just for me.
I miss taking the train with you, your hood over your head, coming back from a dinner party with your friends, our feet touching under the table.
You promised me the world, and I believed you. But you're with someone else now, trying to find in her what you found in me, holding her heart so delicately in your hands as you once did with mine.
Maybe you can't find the words. Maybe you don't want to hurt me more than you already have. Or maybe you just don't care.
I wanted to be with you across oceans, and you ignored it, dismissed it, acted as if I was crazy, irrational, too optimistic. And that's the gaslight. So automatic and ingrained in you that there was no other alternative.
We will never be those same people we once were. That rainy day in November, you beat me back to your apartment. You on your bike, me on the train, just like you beat me in moving on.
Leaving me broken, incomplete, searching, longing. Yet I survive. I survive without you.
Going through each day, each night, heartbroken but healing from how you held me.
To heal. I have no option but to heal.
And I take back the gaslight, the string you tied me to for so long. I cut it. I grab it with my broken hands, my broken heart.
I pull it out of you and add it to my fuel. It gets shorter and shorter. It gets thinner, until one day there will be no tie between us at all. No forceful grab you held over me.
There will just be me, a me that already existed without you, once buried under your weight, unseen.
But I see her now. She has always been there, and I like who she's becoming. As a 6-year-old, my curiosity always led to chaos.
It was a brisk summer's night, the end of August.
I was mesmerized by the swing set. It was the last night I'd ever used them.
Perhaps it was best to move to a new house.
A house that wouldn't be plagued.
Full of false promises.
Full of broken glass.
Full of the screaming and hitting that terrified me.
Or so, this is what I desperately told myself with the hopes of finally having a normal and loving dad.
I was sadly mistaken.
He would never be normal.
I don't think he ever will be.
I quickly ran outside with my arms in the air to feel the breeze. I asked my sister to join, but she never made it outside.
I waited impatiently on my swing.
Suddenly, I heard glass shattering.
Suddenly, I heard crying and screaming.
I bursted into the house out of fear. That fear was always tangible. I saw my sister fall at the hands of my dad's violent push. It was this push that propelled me into the insurmountable guilt that would drown me.
The sounds of his screams,
my cries,
and my sister's wails
haunted the car.
These memories are embedded in my darkest memories.
Repeatedly, he shouted this was my fault on the way to the hospital.
I was holding a rag around my sister's eye with a fresh cut. The blood eventually flowed down my arm and stained my favorite pink dress. After that night, I never wore that dress again. I couldn't even look at it.
When my mom finally arrived, I noticed her green hazel eyes, just like mine. They reflected a melancholic and brutal agony I had never seen before. I paid close attention to people's eyes that night.
My sister's gray eyes were full of tears and redness.
My dad's brown eyes were full of anger and a hint of regret.
My green hazel eyes contained fear and sadness. My sister was only 3 years old, and I had let her down.
It was this night, layered by many more memories of pain and abuse, that gave me an intense and elusive exterior.
It stole my childhood innocence at far too young an age.
The guilt I feel from that night makes me feel guilty for everything else.
I want to stop saying,
I'm sorry,
when there's nothing to be sorry about.
We bear the brunt of my dad's abuse differently. I wear my pain through bruises,
lies,
guilt,
and defiance. My mom wears her pain through bruises,
lies,
guilt,
and seeking a disturbance. My sister wears her pain through scars,
bruises,
lies,
and keeping her distance. I don't know what my dad wears, but I know he has the most guilt.
It's about time I stopped feeling guilty for that night.
Stop blaming myself every time I look into my sister's gray eyes.
Stop condemning myself every time I see my sister's scar.
Stop feeling guilty over things that are not my fault.
Stop defying or lashing out due to my resentment.
Stop seeking conflict with my dad, hoping someday he'll see my side.
Perhaps it's time to heal from this night.
To reflect on it and become a healthier person.
Not a reserved, guilt-ridden, and resentful person.
It was not my fault. It was not my mother's fault.
It was not my sister's fault.
It was my father's fault. It was always his fault. I have had to tell myself this every day.
Dad, I sincerely hope that someday you'll understand and apologize. I have never truly opened up about this night until now.
I don't know how you wear your pain. Maybe I'll never know.
But I encourage you to learn.
To become better.
And to embark on healing.
It may be a difficult journey, but I'm looking forward to it. As a 21-year-old, my curiosity will lead me to healing.
I don't quite remember everything. Now it's almost like a dream, or should I say, a nightmare.
I was young enough to be used, not young enough to forget. His wandering hands cost me my innocence.
I don't even remember his face. I do remember his name, though.
I did not know any better, but he did.
I will never understand why some people feel entitled to another's body.
I will never be able to tell him that the collateral damage for his exploration was me.
My memories.
And how they haunt me still 12 years later.
I always wondered why he targeted me. I was not pretty, but then I realized that neither were his intentions.
And his perverted actions sought not a pretty face, but a helpless one, a face that knew not to save herself.
But what I do know is that I have saved a special place for you in my heart. Because you were the cancer to my innocence, but I am a survivor.
It would be foolish of me to thank you for making me stronger into the woman I am today. So I will simply say goodbye.
Goodbye to that small town where your charming barbershop perhaps stands still.
Goodbye to the tattered calendars on the wall and the spinning chair where I sat too many times, unaware of the evil nature that lurked underneath and around me.
Goodbye to those hands and mouth that forced me to cry myself to sleep.
Goodbye to that face which I am blessed not to remember.
Goodbye to you and the haunting memories you come with.
Hello, my name is Erin Greatorex, and I'm the Safe Futures Liaison for this year. Safe Futures supports individuals, no matter how they identify, and families that have been impacted by domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and trafficking in the 21 towns throughout southeastern Connecticut. This past year, they served over 7,000 individuals through a range of services, including confidential hotlines, an emergency shelter, a law enforcement lethality assessment program, court advocacy, transitional and supportive housing programs, and more. As an essential service to the community, they have remained open throughout this pandemic despite increased demand for services of 22% and additional costs. Their work goes well beyond what can be briefly stated, so please consider supporting their amazing work by donating to the link in the video description. Now please watch this short video about their work that they have so generously provided.
For all of the times you couldn't bring yourself to sit at the table with them.
For all of the times that you cried at night, wondering why.
For all of the times you covered your body because you didn't look like them.
For all of the times that you felt like less than,
you are so much more. You are beautiful.
You are resilient.
You are kind.
You are everything that you ought to be.
You have lovely eyes. Did you know that?
When they are red-rimmed and blurry with tears, they are more beautiful still.
They are strong, emotional eyes.
And your smile, it makes my heart skip a beat. So genuine and pure.
Allow yourself to be happy.
You are worthy of love, from others certainly, but most importantly, from yourself.
You deserve to see what your mind hides from you when you're overthinking late at night.
And you deserve to know that the mirror distorts beauty. Your pain is strength and triumph. Can't you see?
You are beautiful.
Resilient. And kind.
You are who you are meant to be.
I look at her hands.
I want to hold them.
I stare at her lips.
I want to kiss them.
As we walk home across the lawn, I move my smallest finger closer and closer to hers. Finally.
They grab each other and wrap around one another.
A small embrace I want to keep forever.
We stop walking, but keep our fingers connected, always touching.
I meet her eyes.
I forget how to breathe.
I think I might pass out, but then I don't.
I can't speak.
I thought I had been in love before, but it never felt like this.
She is so warm.
So soft.
And so beautiful.
When our lips finally meet, I feel every part of my body light up.
The sun is set and the moon is hidden behind the clouds.
But she feels like sunshine that I desperately crave to bathe in.
When the kiss ends, she tells me she'll walk me home.
All this time, she keeps my smallest finger wrapped in hers.
Letting me know without speaking that she sees me.
She feels me. When we reach my room, she lets go of my finger and leaves me.
All of a sudden, the light is gone, and in the dark, I'm scared.
I grapple with what happened.
I struggle to adjust my perceptions of love,
sex,
romance,
friendship.
I break under this pressure, and then I build myself back up.
Next time she leaves me,
I am less scared.
To shove it down my throat or blink it away, maybe flood my mind with other thoughts.
Because to think that one thought means to me that I've bought into the idea that I am not.
I'd rather bite my tongue, close my eyes, hold my tears, because for years I've been running from the thought that tells me I am not.
I am not strong enough to fight the thought that. I am not strong enough to block the thought that. I am not okay. I am not. And to think this is coming from the mouth of one woman who had one shot of making it.
Please remember, peers will instigate.
People won't integrate. They'll punish who intimidates.
But your fate is not to buy into the thought that you are not.
You are.
Everything your past said you would be.
You are.
The inner work most people won't see.
You are.
Capable and worthy. And if anything,
you are not what you thought when you dimmed your light to that PWI.
Is it really so easy to forget? Do I have to remind them of my pronouns every time? Part of me believes in them.
Hopes that since they're smart and logical, kind and considerate, upstanding citizens, students, and teachers, maybe they won't need me to tell them again.
But God, it feels like a slap to the face to hear she. To hear muttered words and offhand comments.
Is it intentional, or is it just a never-ending string of honest mistakes?
At some point, it becomes easier to let the words slide off me like raindrops. Stop reminding and asking and introducing, and to let people slowly forget who I am.
It's easier in their minds, I think, to see me as what I'm not, so I let them.
Is that so bad? I've never intentionally deceived anyone. I just let people think what they prefer to.
Do I have to insist on a public identity? Maybe not now.
Right now, all I need is for you to understand, and I'll let everyone else's words slide off me. Maybe it's enough for now. To exist with just you, to be me.
Last summer, I went skinny dipping for the first time.
I always expected skinny dipping to be terrifying and awkward.
I'll be honest, it was. But it was also the first time I have loved my body in a long time.
I used to think that skinny dipping was a thing only beautiful, horny teens did in movies, but what if instead you could do it for yourself?
It was a dark, warm night, and I was staying with a group of friends near a lake.
It was late, and I suggested the idea of skinny dipping, mostly as a joke.
But the idea caught on, and before I knew it, we were walking down the path, guided by our phone flashlights.
We giggled all the way down to the dock and carefully placed our towels as close to the water as possible, just in case we changed our minds.
Then, in a nervous blur, the clothes were off, and we were in the lake.
Once I scrambled down the tiny ladder into the pitch black water, at first all I could do was swim and laugh.
It felt so ridiculous what we were doing, so cliche. But the more I swam, the better I felt.
The water was invisible in the darkness, and as it blended with the black sky, it was easy to imagine I was flying.
I could feel every drop of water glide past my body.
We are taught to self-judge, to self-deprecate, to constantly self-improve. But in that lake, for the first time since I was a kid, I didn't want to do any of that.
When I was young, I felt comfortable in my body.
But then puberty hit, and there was nothing I could do to stop it.
Before I knew it, I was unrecognizable to even myself.
I was left with a body that felt too feminine, and I had to reassemble the broken pieces of my self-understanding.
As I swam, I felt overwhelmingly whole.
As I looked down through the water at myself, my tan that I had been working on all summer looked ghostly and green, but I felt like an ancient marble statue come to life.
I was not looking at the stretch marks or violin hips or anything else that society has taught me to dislike about my body.
Every piece added together to make me, and I recognized beauty in my uniqueness.
In that moment, I fell in love with myself.
I never wanted to get out of that lake.
Try being naked.
It doesn't have to be as extreme as group skinny dipping, but be present and aware of your body whenever you can.
Skinny dipping may not be for everyone, but I can tell you one thing for sure.
Last summer was the first time I went skinny dipping, but it will not be the last.
On a rare day, I arose content and with intent.
A feeling of calm washed over me for no apparent reason that morning.
The headlines of the day were reduced to a low hum. Thankfully, nothing there was more apocalyptic than yesterday.
The hard realities of the moment felt tolerable.
I laid down with my back against the floor for a while, still, relishing the curve of my spine against the firm and unyielding carpet, taking comfort in the slow and steady tide of my breath. In and out.
In and out. I felt grateful for the small catches of beauty in the day.
A brilliant blue sky.
A hint of warmth on my skin.
Bearing trees beginning to bud.
I kept busy, without fighting for the serenity of the moment, with the distant awareness that it likely won't last.
In an article about predictions for a post-pandemic world, I read that a quarantine state of mind may persist for a while.
Any thoughts on what that means?
Should I be worried about it?
Should I be worried that I'm so worried?
Do other people feel the same way?
On a different day, I was startled from my slumber, clenching and unclenching my jaw.
The news for the day made my breathing feel tight. I physically could not make my breath fill my lungs.
My futile deep breaths snagged in my chest.
I found 5, 6, 7 different positions around the room to focus.
None of them worked.
My soul felt restless and fidgety.
Frustration, sadness, and loneliness gnawed at my stomach as I tried to work.
But honestly, how can my work matter on that day?
When the pandemic hit, some of my longest held dreams were yanked out from under me,
leaving me overwhelmed and smothered by the silence that replaced them.
I keep catching myself trying to plan for the future out of habit, but I'm quickly disappointed by the foggy future I'm reluctantly marching towards.
I hope for the day I can smile about those dreams gone by.
But will I have the strength or the time to get there?
For now, I'm trying to take things one day at a time.
And every night, as I fall asleep, I hope the next day will be a still one.
I think I'm attached to you because you embody a tipping point.
I made the first move. I sent a shitty roses are red, violets are blue poem to a hot stranger on Tinder. Were you impressed? Appalled? Intrigued?
I impressed myself.
I told you that you were pretty fucking sexy. You probably hear it all the time.
I don't say it all the time.
Do you remember that night? Curled up on my bed, legs intertwined. You told me you liked to be the little spoon. Do your friends know that?
We talked and giggled and yelled, "Save the bees!" at the top of our lungs.
You've seen some bad days. I've seen some too. You touched the scar on my wrist. It's fresh, but I'm hoping you couldn't tell.
Did your heart drop in the silence as your finger traced the puffy comma shape? Did you want to ask why? Or is it easy to tell why?
I wanted to ask why when you kissed my back. Why you traced hearts into my hip bones.
I asked you to slow down the second time you came over. You looked scared. Your face alien compared to the glare of disappointment I had faced for 2 years.
You don't owe me anything.
Did you really think that I was debtless as I sat over you shirtless? Was I debtless as our pants and shirts slid to the floor, painting an image of
yes and no?
Was I debtless as you traced my nose and my lips? Was I debtless as we rubbed our noses together, fingers mixing together above my head?
Was I shameless when your eyes traced the red scabs on my arm, yet to turn into puffy scars? Was I shameless when I told you I was scared, that he didn't like the word no?
I was shameless when I held my ground.
Yet I feel like I somehow fucked everything up that night. Maybe I don't scream something casual because nothing about me is casual. Our relationship was no strings attached. That's what we both wanted.
But that doesn't mean that I am storyless.
That you are storyless.
Do you remember me? And the way my fingers painted sunsets on your back?
We are no strings attached. But do you have a piece of my storyline tied around your pinky finger?
Do you wonder where I am now?
Do you wonder where I'm going?
I find it ironic that museums are filled with bodies.
Bodies with
curves,
bellies,
muffin tops,
double chins,
bodies with
breasts of all shapes and sizes,
braids of intellect and beauty,
eyes that question, and
smirks which suggest an understanding.
Bodies without
thigh gaps, six-packs,
squat-induced butts,
a waxed pussy, shaved legs,
plucked brows or contoured cheekbones.
These bodies tell history.
These bodies counter millennial beauty norms. These bodies are art.
But for some reason, ours are not.
Ours are
on the heavier side, covered in cellulite and veins, riddled with stretch marks.
Ours are
skeleton exteriors with jutting bones in odd places, too thin yet too fat.
Artists once studied our bodies.
But those artists no longer paint us because we are not placeholders in a white man's museum.
We have bodies with
limbs to walk, brains to think,
organs to create life, a heart to love, a stomach to eat.
So let's stop
walking to exhaustion,
sucking in our stomachs, listening to those negative thoughts,
reducing our ability to menstruate or have children,
to null,
letting our self-worth be equated with our weight.
You are a body, not a work of art.
The morning before I broke up with you, I took a picture of myself in the mirror. I took it because I wanted to remember how I looked, so I could compare it to myself in the future.
I finally got the courage to break up with you, because you got mad at me.
For not telling you the grade I got in statistics.
When I told you that our relationship was over, you called me a cunt, and I read the message and went to sleep. I remember smiling with my head against the pillow that night.
See, when I left you, I was ready to have my own opinions, without worrying about whether or not they would conflict with yours.
I was excited to finally walk through a New York City subway station without worrying about getting pushed into a wall. I was ready to get in a car without worrying about you slamming on the brakes too hard and making me hit my head on the dashboard.
I could not wait to do something and not tell you about it. I woke up the next morning and got my nose pierced because you hadn't let me do it for years.
You used to tell me that my intellect, my opinions, my personality, my passions were all made by you. You were wrong.
When I got home, I stood in front of that same mirror and took a picture.
I looked taller. I felt loud.
I'm glad I'm learning to feel important.
Do you remember when you lost your innocence? Do you remember the moment the world broke apart and exploded into something you couldn't even pretend to control? You tried when you were younger, a book a day to escape, little laughs at soccer practice, PBS Kids and cereal before the big game. And then you're older and the problems feel bigger. So you run until the doctor says that your body is breaking. And the high school calls your mom. They say that bones are poking out of your skin.
Hi, this is Mrs. Valentine. We're concerned about your daughter. Have you considered seeing a professional?
But inside, you still believe in a world that is kind and that will protect you because you are you. You're the protagonist. You're the hero. You're the singular narrator, and the narrator never dies. Suddenly, without warning, you're freshly 19, shaking in a booth, eating a bowl of Lucky Charms. It's the first meal you've had in 48 hours. Someone you've never met sits with you. Your eyes are red. There's vomit in your hair. The world has broken.
It's not really assault, but that sucks that happened. Maybe you shouldn't have slept so close to him. A slut gets what's coming to her.
And then you're younger, 2 days younger. You're 18. You've been alone on this new earth for months, but these people who call you friends say they'll protect you. It's dark. The windows are painted black. The weeds are tangling your throat. The vodka turns into mud and running turns into sinking. They give you a break from a tenuous sobriety you've been holding on to. They whisper,
"It's okay. It's your birthday. Have a little fun."
Suddenly, without warning, you are pleading. Are you speaking? You can't tell if words are coming out of your mouth. Maybe this is a nightmare. Maybe tomorrow we'll all wake up and this won't have happened. Your body is not yours anymore, no matter how much you beg for them to stop.
But they don't, and they can't, and they won't.
Do you remember when you lost your innocence? Do you remember the moment you died and a woman rose out of a little girl's skin, not out of choice, but out of force? I do.
I was in therapy the first time I heard someone say it.
It was the first time someone had used the word to describe me.
Survivor. Survivor had always been a term reserved for other people,
For people with real issues.
For people with real trauma.
For people who had gone through hell and come out on the other side.
I had tried to convince myself that it applied
to me too. That I had been through enough.
That I too have been through hell and come out on the other side.
That I too have real issues.
But I had never called myself a survivor, and nobody else had ever called me one either.
I wasn't sure how to define myself, how to define my trauma.
Was it even trauma?
Was I just overreacting?
Not only was I lost in a fog of confusion and pain to begin with, I was also lost in a fog of not even knowing what to call what had happened to me.
I was lost in a fog of not knowing what it was allowed to be to me, who I even was allowed to be to myself.
I was in therapy not because I had decided that I was, in fact, a survivor.
I was in therapy because I had decided that I, in fact, needed help.
That I, in fact, was allowed to need help.
I was in therapy the first time someone took it upon themselves to validate me in a way that I didn't even know that I needed.
He said it without pause, and I nodded along before I even realized what he had just said.
While I reserved the word for other people, someone else reserved it for me.
Survivor.
Not crazy.
Not to blame.
Not even a victim.
But a survivor.
The word carried a strength that effortlessly flowed into my body.
Survivor.
The word carried a weight that made me feel lighter.
Survivor.
The word carried a knowledge that I would be okay.
Survivor.
The word carried everything. Survivor.
For the past 90 minutes, you have heard a variety of voices sharing the experiences of women and non-binary students at Connecticut College. You have heard stories about self-love and acceptance, about attending a primarily white institution, about sexual assault and violence, and about being a survivor.
We know that many of these stories are difficult to listen to, and we thank you for being here with us. We hope that this program has prompted you to reflect and consider the importance of these narratives, as well as how they resonate with aspects of your life and identity. We encourage you to continue having difficult but important conversations with those around you about these topics. Again, if you are able, please donate any amount you can to Safe Futures.
We want to share a massive thank you to everyone who is involved with the show, including our leadership team and advisor, Jeanette Williams, the film and production crew led by Thomas Avender, the brave authors of these monologues, and everyone in the cast. This production would not have come together without all of your hard work.
And finally, thank you to everyone who was present to engage with these stories.
Stay healthy and have a good night.